You're listening to Masters Decoded podcast series. I'm your host and the chief decoder, Anis Merchant. Through this podcast, I bring in guests who are successful in a different walk of life to decode and map out their careers and journeys with the hope that we gain all our learnings. The world around us is changing exponentially, and how the impact of artificial intelligence, technology, and other socio-economic factors have either influenced or enhanced my guests' careers.
My next guest, a dear friend and a Harley Davidson rider, Jagdeep Singh Bhatia, and also dearly called as JD amongst his friends and near and dear loved ones. I'm thankful to JD taking time out. From the conversation, you would not know that he was in a quarantine while we had this conversation. JD built a global empire in the shipping inspection business from a tin shed to now a global organization having offices in China, Singapore, Rotterdam, India, and Houston, Texas. The industry demands a lot, and JD personally has seen a lot. Listen in to be dazzled on his career journey. Hi, JD. Welcome to Masters Decoded podcast series. Thanks for taking time out and look forward to having a conversation today with you.
Thank you, Anis. It's good to be here and to share conversation.
For the benefit of my listeners, JD, it would be good to give a little bit background of what you currently do and your company, Zener.
So Zener was started about 20 odd years ago in Bombay, purely as a ship inspection company. Every ship needs to go through their inspections every 2.5 years to keep your certificates in line. Part of that process is to inspect the steel of the vessel. So we were doing this. We started to do this on behalf of classification societies. So to give you an idea, all ships are classed by different organizations: Lloyd's Register, American Bureau of Shipping, DNB, etc. And part of the process of renewal of their certificates is to have the ship inspection. So we make a report. We inspect the ship for checking the steel, and that's where we started off from. There were other companies in India at that point of time when we started, but our focus, the difference was we decided to focus on the international market rather than the domestic market. So the first couple of years were extremely difficult, obviously, because at that point of time, we did not have too many Indian companies working internationally. So it was very difficult for us to be taken seriously in providing, say, a high-end technical solution which affects the budgets of the ships in the millions. And we had to really work hard in trying to build a credibility. So it obviously was a fairly slow start. Cut 20 years later, we have various portfolios or verticals, if you may, where yes, ship inspection is still what we call our bread and butter. It gives us our identity at some level. It also keeps us rooted because it is hardcore kind of work where you're going into the nooks and crannies and crawling through mud, etc. It helps to keep yourself grounded and humble. I really feel that companies who can manage to keep their humility and also be a slightly insecure are okay, because complacency always, in my opinion anyways, leads to wrong decisions. So now that is one of the verticals. We are also a design house. We are about now close to 300 of us, based out of Ningbo in China, Singapore. Bombay is of course still there, Rotterdam, and Houston in the US. So we are performing different aspects in ship design, ship inspections, and various verticals within different parts of the same. In ship inspections, we are now one of the largest companies in the world. So it's an interesting journey. But yes, it's a journey all the same. It's a nice journey.
I don't know if you know this, but you and I have some commonality. My dad, when he started his career in 1960s, he had moved to Dubai, and he had companies. He used to supply spare parts to shipping companies, and because Dubai is being a big port, so
Yep.
he started his career there. He had his company in
Oh,
Dubai,
nice.
and now my brother, my elder brother, he's a carrying and forwarding. He works for a company and he runs the entire show there in Dubai. And my younger brother works for a company which I'm sure you have heard of, Maersk. And I was going
Yeah.
to join a shipping company before this job because they were
Ah,
servicing a lot of shipping companies. So there is a commonality between the two of us. It's interesting
no.
to hear.
Well, it's even more interesting at some level because when we first went into Rotterdam 18, 19 years ago, one of our first customers in Europe was P&O Nedlloyd, which is basically now Maersk Lines.
Okay.
And I remember visiting their office for the first time and sitting in the reception for, I don't know, good 4 or 5 hours because they obviously could not take this, well, a young boy at that point of time from Bombay seriously enough to consider going on board their ships all over the world to inspect their ships. Uh, take two, and now we have a bulk contract with them, and we do inspect a lot of their ships globally. But yes, but it's a journey.
It's a journey. So how did you get motivated to start this? And did you start Zener or was it somebody else in your family? And correct me if I'm wrong, this is a family business.
It is a family business indeed. My brother and my mom are still very much a part of it. So yes, it was started. It will be nice to say started by me, but it is not entirely true because my mom was with me from day one, and I used to work for my father, who used to run a ship repair workshop in Bombay, and we decided, okay, let us have a small inspection department out of it. So literally started off in a tin shack in a part of Bombay called Masgon, which is imagine the hardcorest of the hardcore Bombays. It is called. Uh, the steel market was there, the scrap market was there. So it was a very hardcore kind of a place, very different from say where we operate out of in various parts of the world now. But at that point of time, it was a tin roof, tin structure, and it was just me, and we had one more guy. The choice was to buy the first ultrasonic machine or a laptop. I did not have money for both, and we somehow managed to buy one machine. And so even now, for example, when we send out our proposals, there is one line over there that says that the ship's computer will be used for making the final reports. It doesn't happen anymore because everybody has their own laptops and iPads and blah blah blah. But it is still there because at that point of time, I couldn't afford to buy a laptop. So in the night, when the ship staff used to go to sleep, we used to use the ship's computer to actually sit and make our reports. But I decided not to change that as a reminder of say where we come from. So yeah, so my mom and there, and I've always maintained that any business in the world, right? It runs not on say only your ability, but also on the goodwill of the people around you. And there were lots of people who took chances on us or decided to give us an opportunity, and for which I am grateful, and I will never forget those things. And that, you know what, let's try this guy. Initially it was all about us being cheaper than competition so they could try. And then later on, slowly, as you grew as a company, it was also about things like, well, okay, their quality, their, I don't know, approachability. Even now, the thumb rule in our company, even in this lockdown period, is an email coming in must be acknowledged and replied within 2 hours. So I remember in the earlier days, I used to actually set my alarm at 2 a.m. in the morning, 4 a.m. in the morning to see any emails that have come in the interim to be able to reply to them. And yeah, okay, so these things evolved as in we have people, and now because of various offices, we overlap each other. So it's the policy is still there that at least within 2 hours, every email that comes into the company, and it can be from any part of the world, must be acknowledged and replied. So it's certain core principles I think every company needs to have. A certain core identity they must need to have. A certain core recognition of where they come from or where they want to go to must always be, you need to be cognizant of these things. because it's very easy to get carried away. It's very easy to get carried away by success, or very easy to get disheartened by failure, because both of them are going to be integral parts of every business. You're going to have failures, you're going to have successes. You're going to have products that do very well, you're going to have products that tank out. But that should never be a reason not to try something new. That should never be a reason to not innovate because you did something great, then you're just sitting on it. So our policy is every 6 months, evaluate new technologies, evaluate new services. It keeps excitement alive, it keeps the monotony away, and it gives the opportunity for your people to learn new skills, new techniques, new technologies, and go out in the world and give them a sense of pride as well, because they need to feel that pride that, I'm working for this company and we are damn good. And we are not going to sit on something, that we were very good 20 years ago. And that happens to companies, right? They make a product, it sells very well, and they decide not to innovate or just tinker a little bit with that. And sooner or later, because there are always going to be people around you in this world who are going to be younger, hungrier than you. So there, when I said a little earlier on, you need to be a slightly insecure as it, because you need to be constantly in this siege mentality that you are going to be under attack from younger and hungrier companies all the time, and which is a good thing because that leads to innovation on a larger scale. And the more you can innovate, the more that business model is sustainable as an overall product. If somebody just made those USB type MP3 players and they were the best damn MP3 players 18, 19 years ago, and if that's what they all did, then most of the companies that we dealt with, which were amazing at that point of time, you don't even hear of them anymore. So you need to constantly innovate. That's I think rule number one. Be hungry, yes, and be insecure, and also constantly innovate. Yeah, so it's
running a family business. Like you said, your mother is still involved, you and your brother are still running this. There are a lot of learnings, and because it's a family business. Today, I know that Harvard program runs a program how to run an effective family business. So, and yes, India has given birth to a lot of family businesses also, like Reliance and Tata's. They are family businesses now, commercialized, globally recognized, and even your company is globally recognized today. What are your key learnings if somebody has to thrive and do well in a family or business orientation? What would you say? Because
okay. So
you can
family,
have co-workers and colleagues as partners, but family as a partnership is a very different model.
very true. I think it's also important that within family members, one recognizes what are a person's key capabilities, and even more importantly, shortcomings, as in any office in the world. So, and let them take the lead. And that's not only about the family members. So we have lots of, okay, that came in much later, but say in the earlier days. So my mom and I, of course, were there from day one. My brother is much younger than me. So he came in much later on. So he came in with the mindset of expansion. My mindset when we started was about survival. So there were the two different aspects at that point of time. So he could come in, and so when we started our Singapore office in 12 years ago, so he was at that time working for HSBC out of business school, and he'd been there for a while, and then I requested him, because if I have to grow at that point of time, I needed somebody from the family to come and assist me. And then he went and started the Singapore office, which has gone on to become the most successful office we've had. So the one Singapore office is the legal entity that controls China, Rotterdam, and Houston. And God willing, we will hope to grow further. But it all comes from Singapore. And he's the one who really had to work hard at his own level, but from an expansionist mindset, that we need to go and expand more. For me, it was about getting the first order, getting some money. In any new business, I think the most critical aspect is trying to have money to start rolling. You don't need to have money accumulation, but just to start rolling so that you can handle the day-to-day expenses, your payroll or whatever. And in every difficulty, we always have some opportunity. I remember when SARS came in, uh, none of my competition was willing to go and work in China. And for about 9 months, I refused to leave China. Every couple of months, I used to go to Hong Kong, renew my visa, and go back into China into a new project. My mom, who still handles almost, I don't know, 250 people in the Bombay office alone, she's our Margaret Thatcher, our Iron Lady, and she used to hire people and send them to China to assist me in various projects. And then our team started growing. If you try to micromanage everything, then you become the, I don't know, figurehead where people have to approach you for every decision they make. So very early on, we decided that, listen, if we have to handle multiple projects, multiple things, your people have to become independent, which means they need to make independent decisions and you need to back them up. And I have always felt the difference between success and failure at some level sometimes is confidence. And confidence is not automatic, right? It comes when you make repeated good decisions over a period of time. So you have the confidence to take a decision on your own. But if every time, and I have seen this happen in tons of companies, where people are always looking over their shoulders to see are they making the right decisions, or they are put down the moment they make a wrong decision, or to have a blame culture. It's very easy with hindsight to blame people. But it's also difficult, but at the same time, I think it's a natural thing to do. You let him make a decision or her make a decision. If he fails, tell him no problem, we try again. If he succeeds, you pat him on the back. Sooner or later, every 10 decisions you make, he will get 7 right, 8 right, 9 right. And he will learn the ability to make the call himself. And the more such figureheads you can create in the company who can go out and be your starting off as foot soldiers, but into actually generals, you have actually created an independent team structure. So they can go out, handle something, and carry your flag for you, and you don't have to do it. So we really try to encourage that a lot in within the company itself. So we have people now who've been working with us for 17 years, 18 years, 19 years. And that itself is a good thing. And to see them grow, to see them at least succeed in terms of the economy, yes, but also in terms of when we see them is their families, that the children are going to better schools, or their, that is a sense of pride you can have, that you know what, you something, they are doing their own hard work, they have growth has come from their hard work, but there is a 2% or 3% catalyst in there that gave them at least the opportunity to go out there. And as we grew, there's no way a company can grow, a family or otherwise, unless they are independent, or they are independent in their actions. So they were encouraged to come up with ideas. So now, for example, the design team is handled completely independently. The marketing or whatever is handled by, I have a colleague in Rotterdam, Mr. Sanjeev. There's a head of technical who sits in Singapore, Mr. Ashutosh. They are senior guys. They've been working in this industry for 30, 40 years. I do not need to, we have a basic plan in hand. All right, this is what we need to do. And then they run with it. And we don't have to think about it beyond a certain point. My brother is really, really good with numbers. So he implicitly, all right, he's going to handle the finances and stuff like that. My mom is a very people person. So she can handle all the people. There are 250 people sitting in the office. So she can sit down with them, talk to them about their families and what's going on and what are the things. So it is a family thing and business, but also we call it the Zener family because there are people who've been there for so long, gone through the same hardships or tragedies or successes of life together. So they become part and parcel of who you are as people. So it's important. It's people, right? At the end of the day, we are a services company. Our people are our most important asset. Not they are the most important asset. Everything else doesn't really mean anything.
Very, very impressive. When I look at your organization, you've truly, over the years, built a true global organization, from India to Singapore, China, Rotterdam, and Houston. How do you manage culture, and how do you ensure that you spoke about the Zener family? how do you keep that Zener family together? Because everybody has their own perspectives, and when you bring in people from different cultures, everybody has their own mindsets. So how do you
Yes.
align to that?
So the most important thing I will say is we do not try to manage it. Every country has its own work culture. Every country has its work principles. Every country has its own work ethic. We are the company that has entered that country. We, as a company, have to assimilate to that country's work culture, those people's work ethic, and not try to manage them to adopt to this is how we do things in Bombay. So this is what you need to do. You no, we have to learn in Bombay how they do things, and at least in terms of value systems, share and interact what they want. What has is going to be different. Somebody working in a job in Rotterdam in Bombay, his work life balance is going to be completely different from somebody who's say a really young 20-year-old hungry boy in Bombay. For him, his priorities of life are going to be very different from a 20-year-old boy in Singapore or in Rotterdam or in US for that matter. I have to understand it. We as a company have to understand what is it that makes them tick, what is it are their end goals in life, and then try to align our, I don't know, value systems to match theirs. I can't go and dictate that, listen, no, the guy in Bombay may be willing to work 12 hours every day, 6 days a week, but the guy in Singapore may not be. His desire might be something different. Maybe he wants to learn more in terms of technology. Maybe he wants to learn more in terms of different, I don't know, just services aspect or whatever. And we have to align ourselves over there and see what are our strong points based on different geographies. Because with certain clients, they need something X, and somebody else might need Y, and then we can decide which office is best geared to cater to that requirements. Because at the end of the day, as a service provider, I have to understand what my client needs. I have to understand what are his end goals. Everybody likes to say that we are quality conscious. Everybody likes to say we are, I don't know, economically minded or cost conscious. But in different parts of the world, these things are going to vary. What is quality is going to vary in different parts of the world. What somebody is willing to pay for a certain quality is going to vary from different parts of the world. So you can't go into a Mercedes showroom and ask for a price of a Corolla, with no disrespect to any of the brands. But having said that, there are different segments. So we figured that we have to operate in every segment of the market, and then cater accordingly. So from India, I can keep costs low. From Singapore, I can arrange, my people are there, so they are easy to travel. So which means my speed of reaction is faster in Singapore, because the employee in Singapore is going to be able to travel to XYZ countries without visas, which the guy in Bombay cannot do that. But then if I need somebody, in 1 day notice in Australia, then Singapore is the best suited to handle it. So there are these various aspects that are there, number two. And then we decided to go local. Yes, we always send one or two guys from Bombay when we're starting an office to showcase what we are doing and how we do it. But after that, we hire only locally. So at the end of the day, if you're operating in a society, in a geography, you have to contribute back to that society. You have to contribute back into that ecosystem as well. If you are only there to take, uh, it is again not a sustainable thing. So if I'm in Rotterdam, I have to contribute back to the society of Rotterdam. I have to contribute back into the, I don't know, the environment that you are operating in, and not be there just to take something out. You have to, because then it's a, it's a happy ecosystem to operate under. So yes, we have to. No, we do not try to put our thought processes into different offices. We have to invite from theirs as well, and that's fine.
Yeah. And now, when you work, and you did speak a little bit about competition, uh, you did say in the initial part that you are one of the top providers in the industry, but there is competition coming from all angles. There are people who are bigger as compared to you, and then there are people who are coming up with new technologies or these new startups who are building up in your space as well. How do you compete? You did speak about some certain values as a company which allow you to compete better, but apart from that, are there any other key values which or key aspects which you focus on?
Yes. So you're always going to have younger startups operating. Like we started in a tin shed. There are lots of tin sheds everywhere in the world where you have young, hungry people who want to do well, and more power to them because they contribute in developing the industry as well. So competition is good. It keeps you hungry. You have to be aware, but you also have to understand that if you are running 5 offices with 300 something people, you are not going to be able to compete only in the price factor. He has no overheads as compared to you. Two young boys, they are going to be have no overheads compared to you, but they will also not have the reach that you will have in terms of how fast you can deploy. So even as a large dish company, obviously we are still in the SME MME sector, but even then, you have to still think of yourself as a startup. So your reaction time has to be as fast as a startup. Your ability to integrate technology and get out into the thing, into an actual product, still has to be of the startup mentality. So it's a nice thing what we do in at least in our company is, if there is an individual project, we give it to a bunch of people. All right, this is your project, you guys run with it. And that becomes a smaller segment of the larger company, but it is still a small setup like a startup for them to be able to perform their service. And at the same time, keep adding clients, keep adding services which we can go and offer to similar. So you always end up cross-selling multiple services, which maybe a younger company cannot do, because your portfolio is larger. So you always cross-sell some service or the other. And this also helps you in the downturn, because shipping is a very cyclical business. So there are certain aspects. If you're a tanker operator, you're going to go through a cycle. If you're a container ship operator, you're going to go through a cycle. If you're a bulk trader, bulk carrier operator, you're going to go through a cycle. Very often it happens that their cycles may not be in complete sync with each other. So you have to ride the wave of the guy who's probably at the crest of his cycle. So you need to have multiple services to cater. You also need to have multiple geographies to be able to cater, because even region-wise you can go through. Like right now, with the COVID 19 happening, everybody is at a you know little scary phase of their businesses, and so I'm afraid this is going to put a lot of companies out of business globally. And this is also the time to be vigilant, get the flock together, get your families together, get all the people of the companies together, and you know what, make a fort and hold off to this siege to the best of your abilities. So yes, I'm to come back to your main point, of course, is startups and younger and hungrier people actually assist you in remaining hungrier. As I mentioned right at the start, that for me it is very, very important to always remain slightly insecure. And insecurity really helps me. By insecurity, I don't mean you are prompted into inaction, because that can also happen to some people. They get so scared that it freezes them, and then you are like this deer in a headlight syndrome. No, but you have the headlight coming. You should have 3 or 4 escape paths available. That okay, this car is coming down. I can see the headlight. I can escape on the right, left. I can jump over the car. I can move to the side, and have all these 4 or 5 plan A, B, C options available. So you need to be agile as a company, not as a person, but as a company, you need to be agile to handle all these cycles of downturns that are going to come. So yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. You spoke about technology a lot in this conversation, and you spoke about the first ultrasound machine you bought and the laptop.
Mm-hmm.
The ships have evolved today,
Mm-hmm.
and the docks where the ships dock has evolved. Technology is evolving on all facets. How do you see technology evolving? And I'm sure the word of AI often comes in front of you as well, artificial intelligence. And I did see a video which you had posted on LinkedIn where sitting at one place, you were able to do an ultrasound and look at every part of the ship, sorry, fish, I'm saying. So, how's technology really helping your business to evolve further as you look at it? And How are you keeping up with
Important
it?
thing is to differentiate trends, jargons, usability. It's very nice. You go into meetings, people talk of IoT, AI, all those kind of things. So one of the things you need to identify is what technology is useful in your business. Is it going to be actually add value to what you're doing or not? Technology is just for the sake of being technology, or to use the jargon. It will be great in meetings, it's great in presentations, it's great to talk, but is it going to add to the bottom line of the company? You have to be very aware of. So we have a very active, say, IT kind of development model where we are doing a lot of things of digitization, of reporting, etc. That is useful because that helps me and my client in identification of problems, in forecasting of problems, useful thing. But for example, in the inspection phase, it became, in the last couple of years, people started talking about things like drones, etc. I am not still convinced in my business for the drone aspect. It creates great photographs, excellent. It helps me to identify things, it's great. But I'm doing also physical measurement using ultrasonics on the ship structure. A drone cannot do that. You cannot replace a human being from actually going up next to the object, looking at it with a pair of eyes, banking on 10, 15 years of experience, substantiated by data. You see, data at the end of the day is king. How you capture process is what is the importance of it. But you still need basic data to start your thought process about the next step. We have to use technology in terms of machinery items. For example, if I have a tool which will help me measure something better, faster, more effectively, we have to use those technologies. Uh, but at the same time, I do not want to get into the space where I'm trying to invent the machinery to actually do that inspection, because that is being done by the professionals of that particular industry. So let's not try for me to get into that space that, okay, somebody else is making ultrasound machine, I have the experience, let me try and develop a UTM machine. No, that is not my core competency, because the moment we start forgetting our core competency is when there starts, diversification is great, internet things is great, but also it's also important to understand where my core competency lies. My core competency is ships, and to understand ships and to make a decision on, if I can find tools that helps me inspect the ship better, great. If I can find tools that make me inspect the ship faster, great. If I find a technology that will help me in preventive, predictive maintenance and finding out, great. We are all in for it, but not for developing. I'm not there to reinvent the wheel. So I'm a user of technology. I always say this, that God did not give me a face to be a metrosexual, but I can be a technosexual. And so technology appeals to me. So technology appeals to me, and we are all in game for it. And it's a young company. I'm the oldest at 47 now. I think only three of them in the company who are, say, at my age or are older than me. So we have a bunch of all young people in the company, and they are themselves coming up all the time. Hey, maybe we can do this, and maybe we can do that, and why can't we try this? And that is great, because it saves my small brain from thinking much, because I have a couple of hundred other people who are going to think on my behalf, which is awesome.
When you talk about inspection, you have to convince, and your clients expect you to go into these smaller, dirtiest parts of the ship, which basically may be the problematic areas and can bring the ship down significantly. And these can be hazardous in many ways for human beings. How do you convince your team, and how do you enable them to be keeping their safety in mind? Because that's a very interesting skill to probably possess as a company, to do that. And have you done that personally?
I
Have you
think
done
I
any of
think
these inspections?
yeah, because when of course, because when we started out, there were two people in the company, right? Me and a colleague of mine. And so for the first, I don't know, 8-9 years, yes, I was involved in lots and lots of inspections myself, because we did not have the manpower or afford the manpower to delegate. And unless you roll up your sleeves, you cannot appreciate what the other person has to go through. So I'll give you a completely different story. Forget about me. My brother. Now, my brother was a computer engineer. He did his MBA, and then he was working for HSBC. So pure white collar and everything. So when I asked him to join me, and then we wanted to open Singapore, for the first year and a half, he just went from one ship to the other ship to the other ship, because coming from HSBC, his first question was, what is going to be my job title? I said, I don't care about the job title, put whatever you want. But what I know is you're going to be in a pair of overalls, knee deep in mud and sludge and going through all these areas. And after that, you want to put whatever name you want to it. I really don't care. But the work is not going to change. So the attention to detail is always going to be important. And yes, it is not for everybody. I remember we still have this program of, say, hiring the new people who come in. And I will still say that at the end of 1 year, maybe 10% of the fresh guys actually decide to continue with this business, because don't forget, the ship is being inspected, but it can be anywhere. We have inspect ships in Narvik, in above the Arctic Circle in wintertime, and when we are doing in dry dockings in Dubai in the peak of winter, when you have 50 degrees is the ambient temperature, but when you enter the ballast tank of a ship, it's 60 degrees with 100% humidity, and you need to keep having salt tablets just to sustain yourself. Or when you are in Narvik, you have to wear 3-4 layers of clothing, and still when the Arctic wind blows, I can promise you no amount of protective gear is going to protect your face or your fingers or whatever. So it takes that mindset. But shipping is that mindset of people. It is getting more and more difficult now, because you see, to convince a young and hungry person to go through all these things is easier. But if somebody comes from a comfortable background, to convince him to go through these hardships, you need to be self-motivated, that, you know what, I'm enjoying what I do. So you make it fun for them in terms of that, you know what, you're doing something meaningful, you're doing something good with your life, but at the same time, it's something you're working with your hands. In any case, okay, in the design department is different. They have to deal with different problems altogether, because yes, they are not going on the field so much. But then to be able to sit for hours and hours in front of multiple screens trying to design something and trying to imagine things which they have actually never seen. You know, for somebody, for example, we design, say, ballast water treatment systems or scrubber systems. Now, this guy is maybe a 3D modeler, or he might be a pipeline draftsman, or he might be a naval architect or a mechanical engineer where he's doing calculations, etc. But maybe he's never experienced that entire thing running. So for them to get the idea that how the entire system runs is a challenge. So every job has its own challenge. You know, there are people who will think everything is easy. There is nothing easy. There is nothing in this world which is going to be easy. If it's too easy, it's either going to be too short-lived, or it is too superficial. And so the devil is always in the detail. You need to roll up your sleeves no matter what kind of a business you're running. Roll up your sleeves and be ready to get into it yourself. And your people will also treat you differently. They know that you have gone through the same cycle that they are going through right now. So you can empathize with them better. And also tell them, you know what, it's okay. It will pass as well. And of course, you can also have the ability then to pick up somebody's BS as well. That now it doesn't look that way. So it helps. You have to do it yourself. You have to do it yourself as well. At least that's my personal opinion.
So you might have had amazing moments or experiences which you would remember. Like you spoke about the Arctic, the Narvik, or the Dubai and the heat. Do you personally have a favorite moment in life where after you look back and you say it was beautiful, it was bad, but it was beautiful?
Yes, because these things are what are known as, I find them as character forming moments of your life. So I will give you an example. When we had started off, it was in January of 2000, and a company in Hong Kong told us we have to inspect 2 ships. One was from Haugesund in Norway to Kalniset in Norway, peak of winter, and we were going to be on that ship for about 4 days. And we were told that if you finish the ship in 4 days, you can go to a place called Savona in Italy, join the ship there, and sail to Turkey for the dry dock. And if you don't finish, then you arrange a second team and have them join the ship and go there. But the problem was there is no second team. There is one UTM machine and there are 2 guys in the company. There is no second team. Now, so we go on board the ship. minus 20. I remember we landed in Oslo, and I'm a guy from Bombay. At that point of time, I did not even have the money to buy Arctic thermal wear to go on the ship. So we were wearing 5, 6 layers of t-shirts and a normal cotton overall. And we used to work every morning from 3 a.m. in the morning to 1 a.m. the next morning. At 1 a.m. the next morning, we would have our breakfast, lunch, dinner, have a shower and sleep, and then get up at 3 again after 1.5 hours, and start working again at 3 a.m. in the morning. The credit also goes to my client, because the superintendent of that ship, Mr. Ashish Bhatnagar, I remember, he used to stay up awake with us that, you know what, my boys or these people are working. And every time we came out of a ballast tank covered in mud and, completely drenched in mud, he would be sitting there with a warm cup of coffee and a sandwich or something for us to go back. But we did it for 4 days. And a job which was supposed to take about 10 odd days, we managed to finish in 4 days. And we went on to do the second ship as well, which otherwise I would have lost. But that also gave us the credibility in that company that, listen, what, there are these young boys out of Bombay who are willing to, rough it out when needed. It's very easy to make excuses for not doing something when faced with a problem and look for an escape route. But then if you choose not to do that, if you choose to attempt it, I mean, there was no way for us to know whether we will be able to do this. So I always said, I mentioned this earlier, that the goodwill of people is important. At that point of time, my clients' goodwill helped. The people on the ship, their goodwill helped. And they supported us. They saw us and they appreciated and they supported us, which enabled us to actually do the job in 3 or 4 days and get into the next ship in Italy. It may not happen in today's day and age, but for me at that point of time was also about survival, right? To get that job, because only if I did the next job would I be able to then, pay the rent or whatever you want to call it for the next month, so to speak. So that motivation is different for different people, and you're building something at that point of time. But I cannot forget that it at some level made us, or at least made me, give me an idea where I wanted to go with my life.
So you mentioned you're a technosexual. What other passions do you have in career? Switching gears a little bit. I know there is biking for sure.
Yeah, yeah, which I'm not so good at, or which I wish I had more time to indulge in, but that doesn't happen. But yes, there are things which change. I have a 2-year-old daughter, so I was a very social person. I used to like to go out 3-4 times a week, be out every weekend. That changed with the arrival of my daughter, because the nature of my work is I do travel still more than almost 150, 200 days in a year. I still believe that in the old school way of working, going in front of, sitting with my clients, asking them what we are doing good, what we are doing bad, where we can improve, is important to take this uh, feedback on a face-to-face basis. I still believe in certain old school values. I still believe a handshake is the greatest form of contract between two individuals. Yes, we need the RFQs and the POs and the systems and all those things. That is great. That will take place. But for me, when I look into a person's eyes and shake his hand, for me, that is an unbreakable contract. To get out of that contract, I can get out of a paper contract. There are a bunch of lawyers everywhere in the world which will help you get in and get out of any contract in the world. So I don't care about that beyond a certain point. But if you break the contract of my handshake, no other thing is going to rectify that situation. And I actually believe in that. My family has been in shipping. My father was a sailor. My uncles were sailors. We've been in shipping for the last half a century. But there are certain, shipping is still a traditional business. It is still conservative at some level, evolving. But in value systems, I think the value systems are important for people. Sometimes you can make a commitment and then later on realize that, oh my God, I have put it too low. but you have given your word. The words have come out of your mouth. You have said them. Somebody's heard them, and you have shaken hands. So yeah, accept it. It's in the overall scheme of things, it's okay, and most people will respect you for it. There will be people who will take advantage, no doubt, but that's their cross to bear. It's not for me to think about. I will always respect my handshake. So that's it's all right. So yes, coming back, family becomes more important as you grow older, especially when you have less and less time of it. To see my daughter grow up is important, and giving time to your immediate family and friends, because these human connections is ultimately what are the most important things in your life. Nothing else for me is not. It's not important. The cars you drive, the homes you live in, those things don't matter. I'm more than happy sitting on the middle of the road and having a nice cup of tea with my buddies. That to me is the most important thing of my life, the human connections of people. So easy to judge people, but even better to empathize and to share the human moments with people. And I really believe in certain of those core principles of my life.
Very well said. So, on that note, JD, if you have anything you would love to share as parting thoughts for my listeners, what would that be?
I don't still think of myself as an old person. I still feel that I have a long way to go. But for the 20, 21, 22-year olds coming into their work lives, and it can be in any industry in the world, and I really believe that every industry has its own slight changes, but core principles of life that can never change. There are no shortcuts to hard work. Instant gratification leads to uh, failure or disappointments. Uh, you have to grind in whatever work you do in your life. You have to grind at it. You have to learn the basics of it, and then you can grow on top to enjoy the success. You cannot keep money as a motivating factor. Your job should be your motivating factor. Your excellence in your job needs to be a motivating factor, because the moment you make yourself indispensable to a company, organization, trade, you are automatically guaranteed growth. And no matter if the industry or the business is going through good or bad times, if you make yourself indispensable, you will always be needed by somebody or the other. And there can never be a shortcut for that. And you can have a goal of having a Ferrari, or I don't know, having a nice yacht or something, but that as long as you keep that as a byproduct of your success and not as the reason for striving towards, you're okay. Then yes, and you will even enjoy it better after you really work hard, and then you have come back home, and you have a Ferrari in your garage. You can appreciate it better rather than having some past deal that you have made and managed to get about it.
Oh, I think these are some amazing thoughts. I'm sure the people listening to it would appreciate that. On that note, JD, thanks for taking time out.
No,
I personally know the situation which you are in. So, and having that same energy and passion to have this conversation is really enriching. And thank you for taking time out and
pleasure.
being a great.
No, it's a pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for talking to me.
Thanks, JD. Be safe and be healthy.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for listening in. And we close yet another episode of Masters Decoded. If you've enjoyed the episode, please, you can help us out by sharing it on social media. I would personally appreciate that. It's how we can reach more listeners, and the more listeners we have, the more awesome guests I can get in touch and convince to participate in these conversations that are a joy to have for me, and I hope they are a joy for you to listen as well. You can also help a lot leaving reviews on iTunes or your podcast service of choice. Reviews are surprisingly helpful in supporting the podcast to get to more listeners. If this episode has intrigued you, I would request you to subscribe to the podcast to stay up to date and get notified to the future episodes. With that, I bid you and see you in the next episode.